Currently, I am watching Aaron Rodgers smoke a cigar with Joe Rogan. So normally I will have conversations with folks as they're living in their podcasts. So I thought I'd try it.
The healthiest human beings on earth, professional and
They're like, we're listening. Yeah, but I have to hear what you have to say.
the best athletes in the world. I mean, guys.
I don't really have much to say at this time. Yesterday, this is like the second time I've watched this 15-minute video.
No, you can't come. You didn't follow the rules. Like
Now they're being perverted.
It defies logic. It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense, does it?
Especially at this stage of the.
That's why it's so odd and weird that you haven't reached out to me, Joe and Aaron.
What was it like for you?
Yeah, what is it like for you on that side?
For sure. And a lot of different reasons, I think.
I mean, generally, I tell you that I'm telepathically communicating.
This was coming down. That at some point, I was going to.
This is not how I would speak to you in real life either.
Because I'd chosen to not get vaxxed for reasons that you talked about.
I was actually really proud of you when you decided not to get vaccinated.
Because it's kind of important. You're allergic
And you stood up for yourself.
to medication or a part of the vaccine.
I did, though.
What is it called?
But I have a different relationship with the COVID than y'all do. Meaning I would like kiss the COVID as it died off or whatever and left and went into space.
Speaking, because I'm healthy and I take care of myself, getting vaccinated was not on the top of my list. But, you know, I wanted to look into it.
I used to call them the COVID babies.
And trying to be safe, and I wanted to.
And then I would lay in the bathtub and go like this.
Part if that's what was necessary to keep myself safe and my loved ones safe and my teammates safe, and I looked into it. And at the time, I went on the CDC
As they
website.
died off and went into space as their evolution evolved.
There's a BG. We do not recommend you get vaccinated with the mRNA vaccinations. So the only other one available was Johnson & Johnson, and it had just got pulled at the time for blood products. So I looked into other.
Yeah, and you probably shouldn't have because I just got a head hit off the Johnson & Johnson.
Through a holistic doctor, and I researched and talked to probably a dozen.
You know, part of it's like listening to your gut.
And found a protocol that I felt like was the best available. And what's involved in that protocol? It involved basically a couple-month process of taking a diluted strand of the virus. So I was doing
Diluted strain of the virus. So basically you were vaccinated.
How do they do that? I don't know the exact way that they did that, but
Probably 1 versus a million.
It was oral, and
A dried up version versus a liquid.
I don't know that exactly,
Head hit.
or want to get into that exactly. but there was hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people that I knew in this circle that have been doing this to protect ourselves, because we were
Something about a whale.
You know, for me,
Are you talking to me currently?
didn't want to risk, like
It's water
uh,
with a splash of
or
tea.
any type of clotting with, associated with the vaccine. So,
Head hit.
that was my only option. Either do nothing or do this process. And I felt like that this was.
I mean, probably, possibly what's happening now is I've introduced a new person into the environment
Understand
that's in love with me.
they may grant me a waiver.
So the vultures have gotten wind of it.
But there was clearly two.
And the intensity of jealousy around this man is so intense that they
And the vax, that full
can sniff it out, the love for me,
2 weeks.
and then they attempt to brainwash him
Privileges
into thinking things about me,
they could
and then they physically harm me,
they could go to that
and they emotionally harm me,
comedy show
and then they stand in the corner and look beautiful.
right? And
I'm so innocent.
not vaxxed, fully masked,
Photograph.
zero privileges on the road, could not come
And I'm literally telling you that God is watching and God is channeling.
more than three
And that's how selfish they are.
individuals.
So basically what a lot of these girls are doing too, the ones that are trying to stop me from the jealousy factors.
Crazy.
I mean, I do not necessarily think that if I was an older woman
And that's what
who was unattractive,
into trouble.
who didn't have the gentleman in love with me. And I'm humble in that, grounded in it too. Like, I'm not like, oh, I'm so beautiful, you know. That I don't know if they would react this way, would they?
A vaccinated teammate of mine who contracted COVID.
They wouldn't.
And
it would still be violent and stuff, but it would be a different reaction.
I think on the McAfee show, but I said.
So it's definitely burning jealousy.
Camp, they knew I was not vaccinated. Right?
But the funny part about that is that they invited it in. Meaning they were attempting to humiliate me in the beginning with this weird conversation. The politicians, I believe, I think it was the politicians, to try to get the men to think that I'm gross and disgusting and inappropriate and stuff like that. And the crazy part is that these guys really actually liked me. So there's a lot of public shaming.
To coerce people to get vaccinated. Because not only are you wearing a yellow wristband, you're the only ones wearing masks. And you have to work out by yourself. You can't work out with your teammates. So no drills, nothing? Well, you could have practiced.
So there's a lot of stuff that I don't really know, that I feel like they may have been contacted even.
Just the 7 of us not. Is it because practice is outside?
They may have been contacted by them. I'm not sure. I just saw the one sign. Yeah, there's this girl, and she's psycho. And she's endangering the world. I mean, that's what is coming through. And they knew what I was up to. And I was Instagramming it. And Gary wanted me to post more on TikTok, and I didn't want to. Although I think he had a whole secret section of his own where he was in the All-In Challenge, so he had a whole long list of professionals that he was also sending content to. So it was like 2 billion against 1, which was me, and I had no idea on either end what the hell was happening. So as I'm developing my psychic, which is a very dangerous business, I'm working with someone who doesn't even believe in psychic. And then he had everybody sign contracts to keep their mouths shut. So, like, what is it? Like a silent contract or something? And so then I would be violently abused.
Oh, boy. And I said, no, I just think I'm a realist.
I'm a realist.
What point in the pandemic was this? This was like beginning of August, 2021. So
Thank goodness I had yoga.
That breakthrough infections were real. By then, it had already,
Oh yeah, and then Joe Rogan and I. What was it? What was the first year? Now we're competing.
January of 2020.
This is how they operate. They're trying to compete. So Joe Rogan is trying to tell me to tell the story about how he and I met.
January of 2021.
And then
wasn't that? They started rolling out in
he's.
March and April because that's when I was going through the process.
They can also mind manipulate me,
Right.
but they're up to decent things, I would think.
And by August, people were still
So they can
already getting it,
put words through.
even though they'd been vaccinated. So this was not.
And then Aaron Rodgers is trying to show me Chico, so I know because mom was born in Chico and raised in Chico, and he actually knows my grandmother.
One person at that time
He probably used to do mean things to the cats.
been vaccinated and started with an operation.
Because my grandmother, she's a psycho, and she was featured in Cat Fancy. And Chico is not a big city.
I thought there was an opportunity.
And so they probably did weird things, and I can just see my grandma being like, oh,
Situation that was going on that
cloud, smoke.
Also was going on in the rest of society is that
But the last time that I had ever been to Chico was back when I was 9. So I wondered if if I would have gone out there when I was in my 20s or 30s, before all of his stuff, if I wouldn't have ran into him hanging out around town. Because I was a little wild child, a little adventurer, and I think he was too.
There was talk around the league of general managers.
And there would have been definite attraction there
Non-vax players.
before football.
Right, so they were already up against it. Not only did non-vax players have a harder chance of making the squad, but they also
And him and I used to hang out in heaven together often.
0% opportunity to get a workout.
That's the
So
story.
if you get cut, right,
That he and I used to sit on mountaintops and
during the football season,
river bends and all these different places and
anywhere from
talk.
5 to 50
Long
hours of
talks.
workouts, just to see who's out there.
And he's the one that convinced me to come here
So if
again,
you weren't vaxxed, you had a very low
as well as
not just
Gary.
keeping a job, but even getting a job opportunity.
And all of them, actually. You can do it. 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 It's for the world.
My appeal.
You can do it. It's for the world.
I call it a witch hunt. You know, where they were asking every single.
And currently, it's just a witch hunt.
Vaccinated. You know, they're asking a bunch of big quarterbacks, and some guys were saying, it's personal or whatever. You know, didn't want to talk about their status. And that almost guarantees.
And most people don't want to talk about whether they know me or not. Apparently, is that how it's rolling out?
You know, then they try to get them to say shit about the team.
Meaning, I don't think you guys are even talking about me,
Like dog their teammates out.
except you're all watching and you're talking within the circle.
Question, and had thought about how I wanted to answer it.
And the female psychos know that if they comment and they get my place going viral,
If there's a follow-up,
that y'all are all going to rise up and say something.
but there's a possibility that instead
I also believe that what you're waiting on is for my stuff to go viral naturally
they didn't follow up.
because of Gary Vaynerchuk, so he can prove his theory,
Some of them that I was
which is completely selfish.
right because the only follow-up they asked was basically asking me to rip on my teammates. Like, what do you say to your teammates who aren't vaccinated? Like, what kind of example do you feel like you're setting? You know.
And they're like, what the hell? They were all really pissed off when he dated
Super healthy.
Monovan for the last year.
Goes in our bodies, and I don't have any judgment on any decision.
But I also know that they're all
I knew at some point
undercover doing weird shit behind the women's backs, making and writing profiles.
it was possible.
So they have lists of questionnaires and stuff that they constantly have to answer, and they're making files on what's going on. And if you're not, you're stupid.
That's when the shitstorm hit because now I'm a liar.
Of course they're going to call y'all liars.
You know,
So hopefully you are wearing wire
these people
and videotaping constantly around the cities is all I can say. Because the mob organization is
began, but
brainwashed,
that was difficult. But I will say, and I'm thankful to be on this show, like,
meaning they're wonderful actresses.
and you helped me out during that time. I reached out to you
Oh, look at how gorgeous she
at
is.
the beginning of the season, I feel like, and just said, hey, could you talk about your podcast a little bit? You had some
This is a podcast, by the way. I don't have a microphone.
less controversial
I don't have earphones.
on there talking about
But this is exactly what a podcast is.
out there. You know, people experts in the
And I'm making this particular video specifically for Aaron Rodgers and Joe Rogan.
you helped me with
So if you're not Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers, I'm not sure why you're commenting if you're being rude.
and I followed it to a T. And when I got COVID, within 36 hours, I was, symptom free and feeling amazing. But the protocols was you're off for 10 days. So I missed the game. We lost the football game. I came back, had to answer a ton of questions about it. Obviously, I had
Answer.
basically,
What?
I lost, the majority.
Let's see. I lost who I am. That's for sure.
The good thing is it drew a real line in the sand, and everybody
I've lost the joy for life.
and trashed me.
I've lost my physique that I worked so hard for, which is really one of my number one upsets. I lost the fantasy of what Gary Vaynerchuk represented for me, which was finally met a guy who was authentic and honest, and he was vicious and mean. And then strings me along even still. It has to do with the third eye center, by the way. My third eye center is very special. It's not typical. It's actually controlled. I didn't allow it. I like to say that though. I will only allow God to control it. Because it can do really powerful things. And I used to talk about it in the Instagram story where I would tell Joe Rogan that it would vibrate. And Joe does not like Gary at all. And I can really tap into that when I watch Joe's podcasts. And I kind of like it right now, actually. And then Gary goes, you should really actually take a look in the mirror. It's so complicated. Not really. The worst part about all of it is that I've had, honestly, have no support financially. I do not have any expectations for my parents to pay for shit. Meaning I haven't asked for any money from them. So instead, I worry about money constantly. Meaning this could have been an easier journey if I was locked in a dungeon at Joe Rogan's house, because Joe Rogan would have been paying for all my bills. And I do not have a lot of bills. Or in Gary Vaynerchuk's dungeon. But instead, here I am, jobless again because they got me fired from another job. While he sits on his little throne where he's about to travel to, where is it next? Where are y'all going next? Washington State, is that what I saw? On his national tour. As he spends all my money on another woman. As I give him free readings and praise him and act as if this doesn't hurt my feelings, while she then gets joy off of it. Because I don't express authentically on how horrific the experience has been. Because if I do, it feeds her soul with joy. Which is what happens with all of them. I'm talking about the money mongrels. Because in the beginning, when I was talking with Joe, he was really intrigued by me, I believe. He was intrigued by me. And I think I had some little tidbits of, he had a comedian on, a female comedian on, then he had Miley Cyrus on, and then he had another female on too. So he was trying to give me some opportunity for coming up with ideas of what I wanted to do as a career, right? So Joe was really at the forefront in the beginning, and I watched a lot of his podcasts back then. Not a lot, but some. Because we were communicating on Twitter and Instagram. Because I would tag him often. And I knew that he was controlling his page too. Because I always knew when the person who owned the page was controlling the page. And so those are the ones that I focused on. Meaning I knew Elon was, I knew Donald Trump was, I knew Gary was, I knew Joe was. And I knew Brittany was, during the pandemic especially. Although they would say that she wouldn't. She didn't. They would say that she didn't, but I didn't believe that. So Joe was a little flirty in the beginning, and Gary got jealous. And he was married, by the way. So me and Gary didn't start dating until actually it's been about 2 years now. When I went to California to see my grandmother in Chico, is when we first started evolving our relationship and where the violence increased immensely. And so I didn't quite understand where or why, after 2 years of me tagging him in almost every single post, knowing that he was watching all of it, telling him that if he didn't want me to post about this, then he just needed to say something, and that I would really appreciate for him to reach out to me to help me. And instead, he traveled all over the globe with another female on his arm, holding his hand, him being seductive with her in front of the camera. Meanwhile, I'm over here giving free readings to his whole staff, giving free readings to him with flips constantly so he could feel empowered in his work, and then being mind manipulated by the folks that he had working for him, the ones that he had arm in arm, the people in his Discord, etc., etc., etc. And I just kept thinking to myself, well, maybe this is part of the plan. Maybe this is what God wants us to do so we can expose this. And then nothing ever shifted and nothing has ever changed. And the only thing I see now is our future in retirement, meaning he's prioritizing buying the jets and money mongering over my feelings. And you please tell me, as a person on this planet, is that what God represents? And even after this conversation that I'll have for the millionth time, he will still do nothing but sit here and watch it and make himself right when I have proven him to be wrong in many of his podcasts. Not to mention his hoe that he has sitting on his lap on a yacht in the Cans. As I cry in the streets of New York City with no assistance from his staff or him. Meaning it's not a normal experience for a psychic to travel to another country, really, another location, when they've never done it before by themselves, with the amount of spiritual interaction that occurs for me. And so he convinced me, as I cried on the couch the night before, that I needed to fly out for 137's meet and greet. And so I utilized my own money, which I didn't have a lot of, with the mindset that I was going to see Gary Vaynerchuk, and we were finally going to get to the bottom of this. When I arrived at the airport, I saw poster signs saying, "Are you frustrated or are you happy?" Making himself occur as if he's romantic and heroic when it really just makes him look like a big dick. As soon as I got off the airplane, he knew when my plane landed. "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm in France." Instead of getting back on a plane and leaving, I knew there was work that I needed to do, which was walk to the World Trade Center and flip the land to ease some of the souls that were there from when 9/11 happened. And so I utilized the 137 during the day as I watched money mongrels roam in the building, which were some of his girlfriend's spies. Walked the streets of New York, violently attacked on a regular throughout the day. Went into a church, did some other things around the city, made the best of a terrible situation, and laid on a park bench until 2 or 3 in the morning, when the mind manipulation from the girl that he's sleeping next to in bed, I finally overpowered it and realized that I needed to spend the money, which I didn't have, to take a cab to a hotel, to pay for a hotel I didn't have the money for. And then I woke up the next day and pretended like everything was just fine while he's making out with some girl on a yacht in her bikini in a business meeting. I then go across the street to the Bronx Zoo in attempts to assist the animals in the zoo. Couldn't get in. So then I walked down to the botanical gardens where I had a really lovely day hanging out with myself and God. And then climbing back on a plane where I was violently abused as I headed home. While I realized later he was hooking up with somebody else in cans. His face in all the videos. Look at how sexy I am. Look at how great I am in NFT land. As I am a psychic, channeling God, tagging him in every video. He's willing to have a conversation with a guy who is questioning his whether he's paying taxes. Yet someone who's literally holding up the fort emotionally, psychically, holding space for the nonsense that he's up to, will neither confirm or deny the goings on, except in telepathic form. And then spouting off words like, I'm compassionate and empathetic. Meaning this didn't just start. This is just because it's now out in the open on TikTok, y'all. This started 5 years ago, with Gary Vaynerchuk utilizing a carrot for me to chase, when I was willing to walk away from all of it, as he Egyptians me and convinces me that he's a good person. Now you tell me what kind of good person does this to somebody they care about. So I pay for everything, even though I lose my job constantly because of him. And then he flies another woman to Miami. He posts Instagram photos of him dating someone else. He posts videos of himself traveling to VCon, where he kisses another woman in front of the whole community, and then proceeds to say, I'm not willing to discuss it. Then you hear of him traveling to Turkey, Monte Carlo, and a bunch of other places, exotic, romantic places, with him and some woman who literally stands for nothing but a money mongrel wearing a pretty dress and looking like trash. And this is my podcast for the evening.